why don't we touch on the other Notre Dame recruiting news that had nothing to do with visits, but if
Sort of.
our message board is any indication, is just as interesting as visits, and that
He
is
he did take a
three-star
visit.
receiver. Yes, he did take a visit, and we can touch on that. But the bigger news of it, of course, and we're talking about three-star Notre Dame receiver commit Amorion Walker, is that he picked up an offer from Alabama on Monday, and then Tuesday, Michigan offered him, and yes, he took a visit to Ole Miss earlier this month. So we talked about Amorion Walker when he committed in, I believe it was early March, three-star receiver out of Louisiana. Not exactly a commitment that got a lot of excitement going among fans. In fact, some detractors, I think, were just as prevalent or detracting voices. Just if you, I'm remembering that thread we had on the board about him committing, and it was equal part seemingly detractor questioning as much as excitement or interesting recruit, or what have you. So yeah, all of a sudden this one's looking a little different from that, isn't it?
Uh, Look, Notre Dame staff is not going to be perfect, but I mean, there's got to be some people eating some crow, right? I mean, goodness gracious. I'm starting to see some people be like, well, he's a receiver commit for Notre Dame, and these offers are at DB. Like, if he signs with Notre Dame as a receiver, and the staff is like, yeah, he's a DB, like they're going to move him there. That's what they did with Cam Hart. I'm sure those conversations, and I believe they have with Walker and Notre Dame about DB. Like, he's a dude. Like, he's just a dude. Like, you got to give the Notre Dame staff some credit here. Patrick, when he committed, yes, there was a ton of like, oh my goodness, Dell Alexander, 3 stars, receiver. And don't get me wrong, when you look at the 2019 and 2020 recruiting classes at receiver, it's not pretty. With you had the transfers in the 2020 class. Cam Hart moves over, and then the other receiver they signed in 2019 is transferred out. I can't remember who that is off the top of my head. Patrick, who is that?
Kendall Durraman. Don't
See,
even need to read the correct stat for that one.
yeah, he just never even played, to my knowledge. Maybe some mop up duty here and there. So again, it certainly hasn't been perfect, but it's just like, Dell Alexander's getting crapped on all the time. It's like, could you imagine if Notre Dame offered Amorion Walker today? The feeling would be, why are they so late? Why are we offering after Alabama and Michigan? Like, why Dell stinks, So it's like you just can't get a break here. So, yeah, Amorion Walker ran a 4.4 140-yard dash at Alabama. Are you kidding me? Whether it's receiver, DB, I mean, this dude can just flat out play. I'm hoping we can have him on a YouTube show. You said let's set it up for Wednesday. So, if you're a Notre Dame fan listener watching this on YouTube on Tuesday, hopefully we can have that up Wednesday. Amorion watches our YouTube shows. He wants to come on and talk. So really excited about that. But got invited to the Under Armour All-America game. Like, yeah, Amorion Walker's a dude, Patrick.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible how just like, all of a sudden this just goes in completely different light. And yeah, like you mentioned, it is the both extremes of, when they offered or in play here, where you just picture, oh yeah, when Notre Dame offers a kid really early and he's not ranked or whatever, it's kid sucks. What are they doing? Why are they offering him? Or if it's offering right after Alabama or Michigan or whoever else offered, it's like, oh well, they're getting in too late. Yeah, you see both of those extreme reactions come out a little bit. Yeah, obviously Notre Dame staff was clearly onto something when it offered him back. I believe it was in the winter, and then of course when it
November.
decided to
Yeah,
November. Okay, right. And then when it decided to offer, then continue to recruit him then and take his commitment
Patrick,
early in the spring here.
Sorry to interrupt you. Here's the interesting thing. He was offered as a DB originally.
That's right.
Terry Joseph offered him. He had a connection with the family, and Terry Joseph offered. Then he leaves, and then Notre Dame reviewed his film, and Reese and Alexander were like, let's keep recruiting this kid as a receiver.
Yeah, furthering on the idea of like, I don't think it really matters where Alabama offered him at. I mean,
He's running a
isn't the point
4.41.
where right? Isn't the point no matter what to be recruiting kids that are good enough to play for Alabama? And yes, after running a 4.41 at Alabama's camp in front of Alabama's staff, and then it offered, that seems to be a thing that indicates to you he is good enough to play for Alabama. And I I get why, like, I have a little bit of sympathy for why this didn't generate much enthusiasm when he committed. Like, this is an important receiver class. And now, even more so after two of the 2020 receivers are no longer in the program. And it's coming off of a year where the receiver gap between Notre Dame and some of the better teams and Alabama certainly was fairly obvious, and receiver was a serviceable but not spectacular position for Notre Dame. And the first player in the class is a guy who's, yes, even though this uh, recent little splash here is impressive, still a bit of a, I guess, a boomer bust player. Certainly not coming in with immediate impact visions if we're in all reality. And not that it's the coaching staff's job to like rock anybody to sleep or anything, but in that context, back in the spring, it would have been reassuring for folks to have that first commit be a splash. And yeah, I don't agree with that, lack of enthusiasm or detraction of it, but I understand like
Yeah.
the fuel for this sentiment.
Yeah.
And now none of like today's offer or the 4.41 or what have you means, all right, now all of a sudden this is a sure thing, future 1,000-yard receiver, draft pick, whatever. But it does validate what happened before and when Notre Dame offered him and took the commitment and pushed for him, and that it wasn't alone in seeing what it saw, liking what it liked, and liking what it liked to the point where it really wanted him, and doing so before a lot of others really saw it and pulled the trigger on offering and deciding, okay, we like him enough to offer.
Patrick, I've been covering recruiting for over 8 years, covered more schools than I can count, and I've just seen this so many times where you have a kid who just doesn't have a ton of film, but you learn, like coaching staff learns about him, that high ceiling guy, and staff offers and he commits, and then he just blows up. Here's one for you. I used to cover Louisville. Do you know Jair Alexander? He's a DB. I know he got drafted by the Packers. I don't know if he's still there, but he was committed to Charlotte. And Louisville flipped them, and there was just outrage from that fan base. Why are we recruiting a guy who's from Charlotte? Like, Louisville to Charlotte is what Notre Dame is to, like Louisville. You know what I'm saying? Like, that step down from Louisville to Charlotte is what Notre Dame's is to Louisville. If I said that correctly, you guys know what I mean. And I was just like, are you guys like, this kid's film's ridiculous. He was punt returning. Just did so much as a versatile defensive back, and that was in the 2014 or 15 class. And yeah, the dude was just a stud. And then he blew up late, and Louisville was able to keep him, and the rest is history. I think he was a first round draft pick, but yeah, I've just seen this so many times where you get this kid and you're just like, he's going to blow up. Like, I think he played in 3 games as a junior, and like, the speed was a question mark from people. I'm like, I came on here in that commitment video and said he ran like a 4.5 or 4.6. Amorion texted me and was not happy. He was like, I run a 4.4. And that was back in March. He texted me. He was not very happy about it. We're good. He's going to come on tomorrow, I'm hoping. But yeah, he's a burner. And Notre Dame fans, you want speed on the outside, you're going to be happy with this one because that's what he's got.
Yeah, it's the Alexander example is a good one for what I'm about to say. But in fairness of that situation, I don't blame Louisville fans for getting mad or questioning Bobby Petrino and his recruiting moves and whatnot. Obviously, we all saw how that thing ended and how I don't think he was exactly high on Lamar Jackson at first. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, you see all the time, like guys in winter or early spring of their junior year, or 3-star with however many offers, and then we look up in December and they're 5 stars or top 100s or whatnot that end up at a place that had not initially offered at that point or where you didn't think they were going to end up. And it works both ways. Sometimes you see guys who were top 50 players heading into their junior year after a big summer camp session, and they don't end up working out. It's so ultimately it's just about, all right, you got to just see how some of these things play out, especially when they happen earlier on in the cycle, like Notre Dame's pursuit and recruitment of Walker did.
I just want to add real quick. I'm not crowning Amorion Walker the next Heisman winner. Like, just like I come on here and give Steve Angeli a quarterback commit for Notre Dame in the 2022 class, I give him so much love, but then I like to add that he could stink. Like, he could. Like, I don't know, but I think he's got the tools to be a really good quarterback at the next level. And I said about Amorion back in March, and I'm saying it now June 15th, it's the same thing. Like, he has all of these tools. He's got the speed, the size. Like, he could play DB or receiver. Like, there's just a lot there that to work with that you like. He's a high academic kid. So, yeah, I mean, he's got the tools. You know, like you talked about, Patrick, like the top 50 kid coming off, his sophomore year or whatever, like he could bust and the 3-star kid can land and be really good. You just don't know. But you look at the tools and what you hear from sources and all that good stuff. And Amorion Walker he's a dude. He was a dude back in March when, people weren't too excited about the pickup for Notre Dame. And he's a dude now, and those same, people are like, now we got to hold on to him. Alabama offered him. Now I really want him. So, and I'm not trying to dog on any Notre Dame fans or any other reporters. It's just kind of one of those things. It's like, we got to look back on what it was and talk about what it is now.
Yeah, it's not like all of a sudden Alabama offered and then, oh, wait, he was actually 0.3 seconds faster on his film that you just played there in a minute. Or, oh, yeah, no, that's wrong. He was running a 4.7 then, and oh, he did this. So, oh, wait, no, the film was what it was back then and what it is now. And yeah, it's not like any of this changed what he was back then. It was just Notre Dame was in on it per se
Right.
earlier than most, and that proved to be now a wise decision, I guess is what
Sure.
what you call it.
Sure.